heat with cold seltzers, ciders, canned cocktails, and more. Details at specs.com. Cheers to savings.
Another day of being in the sauna. Heat advisory till tomorrow night. Low 90s for the high. It's going to feel like 111 or so. So be careful if you're out and about doing the yard. Don't forget about your pets. Give them enough shade, water, and a fan. Bring them inside if you can. Slight chance of some afternoon showers today going into Saturday as well. Right now, we're sitting at 83 here at the University of Houston. Streaming live online at HoustonPublicMedia.org on the app as well. News updated all the time. Freeways looking fine. They've been lighter all day because of the holiday. KUHF Houston News 88.7. A service of the University of Houston, 9 o'clock.
Today is Juneteenth, the holiday celebrating the emancipation of enslaved people in this country, which of course stems from events in Galveston. But did the first celebrations of Juneteenth actually happen somewhere else? I'm Michael Haggerty in for Craig Cohen, and today on Houston Matters, a local researcher explains what he dug up.
Houston Matters with Craig Cohen is a production of Houston Public Media with support from Baylor College of Medicine.
Also this hour, a new book celebrates the story and legacy of Riverside General, Houston's former Negro hospital. Then our non-experts will break down the good, the bad, and the ugly of the week. And Sunday is Make Music Day, a free celebration of musical performance around the world. We talk with Houston vocalist Drea Thornton about her music and her career. Thanks for joining us on News 88.7, and remember, check out our live video feed on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. We start with a news update from NPR and News 88.7. Stay with us.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. Israel and Hezbollah have agreed to a ceasefire. That's according to a senior U.S. official who declined to be identified. The conflict in southern Lebanon became a major sticking point in peace talks between the U.S. and Iran, with Tehran insisting that any broader agreement address the violence there. NPR's Rob Schmitz reports negotiations between the U.S. and Iran in Switzerland were called off today after the two sides had announced a preliminary agreement this week.
Here we are in Switzerland waiting for a peace deal. Across this beautiful alpine lake from me here in Lucerne, the Swiss government has taken a range of security measures to host this event, and there are hundreds of journalists here to record it. But for now, Iran's foreign ministry said the signing ceremony is off. The White House said in a statement that the plans for the upcoming technical talks have not been finalized. And either side is here. They're threatening to strike each other, and this agreement appears to be on very shaky ground.
It's NPR's Rob Schmitz reporting from Lucerne. The Barack Obama Presidential Center opens to the public in Chicago today. NPR's Tamara Keith reports the 19-acre campus is expected to draw visitors from around the world.
I got a chance to visit the center and walk through it earlier this month, and it really does, like that concert event, capture the vibes of the Obama years, as if the past decade never happened. But Obama said he doesn't see it as a time capsule.
The exhibits in the center are not meant to evoke nostalgia for some gauzy bygone era, some unattainable past that we can dream about and say, oh, we miss you, Barack.
He said he wants to remind visitors of what's possible.
NPR's Tamara Keith reporting from Chicago. The first flu vaccine that uses the same technology as the COVID-19 shots has taken an important step toward possible approval. NPR's Rob Stein has more.
A flu vaccine that uses mRNA technology won the endorsement of a key Food and Drug Administration Advisory Committee after a day-long meeting. The FDA's Vaccines and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee voted unanimously that the benefits of the mRNA flu vaccine appear to outweigh any risks for adults age 50 and older. The fate of the vaccine is being closely watched because mRNA technology has been both glorified and vilified in the wake of the pandemic. The FDA usually follows the advice of its advisory committees, but Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been a vocal critic of vaccines, especially mRNA vaccines. Rob Stein, NPR News.
This is NPR.
Support for NPR comes from Paramount Plus, with The Agency, a political espionage thriller. starring Michael Fassbender, Jeffrey Wright, Jodie Turner-Smith, and Richard Gere. All episodes of The Agency streaming June 21st on Paramount+. This is NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Harab. A heat advisory is in place throughout the greater Houston area again today. It runs through tomorrow night. All of this humidity is a direct result of the heavy rain we've experienced this past week from what became Tropical Storm Arthur. We've had a lot of rain over the last few months overall, and because of that, parts of the Houston area have become inundated with millions of tiny penny-sized toadlets as a result of that rain. Brittany Cruz, a toad keeper at the Houston Zoo, says these toadlets will grow up to be Gulf Coast toads, a species native to the region.
Their breeding season is pretty long. It runs from like March to September. So they can lay thousands of eggs at a time. And the majority of those eggs will emerge out as toadlets.
For those who may be dealing with an influx of Gulf Coast toadlets at their home or garden, Cruz said not to worry too much, as the toadlets help keep bug populations under control and typically move on from the spawning point within a few weeks. Texas state legislative investigators say that Camp Mystic was not prepared for last year's deadly July 4th flooding that killed 25 campers and 2 counselors. The Texas Newsroom's Blaise Gainey reports.
A 115-page investigative report found Camp Mystic had no written emergency plans, struggled with evacuations, and faced communication breakdowns as floodwaters rose. Investigator Casey Garrett told lawmakers staff members were left searching for direction during the crisis.
The senior counselor in Cozy Corner said they were on the walkie-talkie. What do we do? What do we do? And it went unanswered.
Lawmakers have adopted the report and say its findings could shape future legislation, though some argue Texas has already addressed many of the problems through youth camp safety laws passed last year. I'm Blaise Gainey in Austin.
And the Public Utility Commission of Texas has approved stricter standards for data centers looking to connect to the state's power grid. Data centers and other large energy consumers are requesting about 5 times the amount of power used to power the whole state during record-breaking demand. ERCOT is trying to assess which data centers are actually ready to be built here. I'm Matt Harab.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Michael Haggerty, and today for Craig Cohen. Good morning. Thanks for joining us on News 88.7 and on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. Coming up this hour, the stories of Riverside General, Houston's former Negro hospital. We break down the good, the bad, and the ugly of the week, and we talk with vocalist Drea Thornton ahead of Make Music Day this weekend. But first, today, of course, is Juneteenth, the federal holiday celebrating the emancipation of enslaved people in this country, which, as we all know, stems from events in Galveston on June 19, 1865, when Texas slaves first learned of their freedom. As always, there are a slew of Juneteenth celebrations happening across Houston and Galveston today, and you can find a guide to those right now at houstonpublicmedia.org. And while we tend to think of Galveston when we think about Juneteenth and its history, did the first celebrations of it actually happen somewhere else? Caleb McDaniel is a professor of humanities at Rice University and a Pulitzer Prize-winning historian. He says yes, and he's here to explain where and to detail the evidence he found to that effect. Caleb, welcome to Houston Matters.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Let's take a quick opportunity just to remind people briefly what Juneteenth is actually celebrating, what took place in Galveston in 1865.
Well, June 19th, 1865 is when U.S. Major General Gordon Granger issued General Order Number 3, and it announced that the Emancipation Proclamation would now finally be enforced in Texas. And so it's really a date that now has come to symbolize emancipation more generally, and it's a holiday that allows us to celebrate the end of slavery in our country.
So what did you uncover about a celebration of Juneteenth a year later?
Well, I think it's important to go back and realize that when that General Order Number 3 came out, I don't know that anyone could have predicted that that date would become this culturally defining holiday of freedom, because there were many possible dates that freed people could celebrate in order to mark emancipation. In fact, in Galveston, on January 1st, 1866, there was a large procession and celebration because that was the date of the Emancipation Proclamation from 1863. But on June 19th, 1866, we don't have any contemporary records to show that there was a celebration in Galveston on that day. And that makes it really an interesting question for me as a historian to ask, well, when was the first time that June 19th was celebrated as an anniversary of freedom? And it turns out that that was right here in Houston.
How do you know that?
Well, there's a newspaper that was published in 1866. It's a very rare newspaper called the Houston Daily Evening Star, and only ran for a couple of months. But fortunately, that happened to be in the summer of 1866. And so the reporter for that newspaper included a lengthy 2-column article about what he called the Freedmen's Celebration. And it was a procession and a picnic here in Houston with attendance numbering 3,000 or 4,000 people. And what's really interesting about this article is it even says that there were people from Galveston who came up to Houston on that day to celebrate the first anniversary of Granger's announcement.
We get any sense as to why the celebration of such size was in Houston as opposed to Galveston?
Well, I think, that what it demonstrates is that there were people from all around. It was a larger number even than the size of the African-American population in Houston at the time. Houston was still a very small city, even in comparison to Galveston at that moment. But it suggests that people from the countryside, people from Galveston, and of course people in Houston all gathered on that occasion. I think some of it, as I explained in an article I wrote about this subject, may have to do with the political context of that summer. This is in early Reconstruction, and it turns out that only a few days before June 19th, on June 14th, 1866, there was a large firemen's procession in Houston that had some pro-Confederate overtones. There was a Confederate flag. There were cheers to Jefferson Davis. It was kind of a show of defiance by local white Houstonians to Reconstruction. So the fact that 5 days later, Black Houstonians, Black Galvestonians, Texans came together and had this procession celebrating emancipation, I think it was a bold and courageous statement about Reconstruction and the patriotic allegiance of Black Texans to the United States at that moment.
There were some important figures in the Black community who were at this event, according to that article. Who were they?
That was really fascinating to me, is that this article includes the names, the locations of the events, the organizers. One of them was known to Houstonians because of his role in the founding of Emancipation Park. We know, of course, about Emancipation Park, where Juneteenth celebrations have happened for generations, are happening today. And one of the founders of the park was Elias Dibble, a Methodist minister whose church helped to raise funds to purchase that park. In fact, you can see his image on a monument there in one of the corners of the park. Well, this 1866 article says Elias Dibble was the president of this first June 19th procession. To me, it really draws a line between the founding of Emancipation Park and the founding of the holiday itself. It goes all the way back in Houston to 1866.
And those of us who hear about and read stories about what freedmen were doing in Houston or in anywhere in Texas in those days after emancipation, or have heard some of those stories. But I mean, this is only a year after they were freed, and they were already able to establish churches in some degree. They were, raising actual buildings and then organizing a big rally like this, a big parade.
Absolutely. I think it's really a testament to their institution building, to their courage, their determination as a community. You're right. We think about Emancipation Park being purchased in 1872 and how amazing it is that only 7 years after emancipation, a 10-acre park could be purchased. But Dibble's church, which is now Trinity United Methodist Church, had purchased a city block earlier in 1866 and had moved a wooden church building from where it had been located to that city block that they owned, and they gathered on June 19th, 1866 on that block. And so the story of acquiring land, building institutions is very much the story of Juneteenth from the very beginning.
What did we know, I guess, prior to you finding out this detail about this first march? I mean, what do we know about how Juneteenth was celebrated in the early years of celebrating it and how it became the kind of celebration we know it as today?
Absolutely. Well, a lot of historians have said in previous scholarship we don't know a lot about the earliest celebrations because of the limited newspaper coverage, and that's why it's really significant to find any newspaper coverage that we can from those early years. But we know that by the 1880s and 1890s, when June 19th started to be called Juneteenth, it would have been difficult to find a significant Texas community that was not celebrating the day by the end of the century. And of course, many communities and leaders here in Houston and Galveston and Fort Worth and in rural areas like Mejia had carried on celebrations of Juneteenth throughout the 20th century until in the 80s and 90s and up until today, it began to be recognized as a state holiday and now a federal holiday.
Why do we think that and know about how Juneteenth, as opposed to some of those other days and milestones, emerged as the day that we all celebrate like we do?
I think, as I said, it was not inevitable, but it was because of the choices and the organizing and the persistence of communities that settled on that day, that built traditions around it, and that really begins here in Texas. It starts as a Texas story, and now I think of it as a gift in a way that Texans have given to the country and the world. Now Juneteenth is celebrated around the nation and even in other countries in some cases. So it started here because communities in Texas, Black communities in Texas, Black leaders like Dibble really sacralized the day, made it a hallowed occasion, and that's why we're still able to celebrate it now.
I guess it's fitting, too, in that Texas was the last outpost, the last holdout of other slaves had learned about their freedom earlier, and this was kind of the last ones to everyone's
Yes.
not free yet.
Yes, and I think, probably enslaved Texans had heard about the Emancipation Proclamation. They certainly knew about the war. I mean, there may have been very remote locations where the news had not reached, but I think the real story of Juneteenth isn't so much the arrival of the news, but the arrival of an army that could enforce emancipation. And in fact, it's interesting that in some of the early newspaper accounts we have of Juneteenth celebrations here in Houston, that's how they described it. The anniversary of Gordon Granger's order enforcing the Emancipation Proclamation. They understood that, here in Texas, there were Confederates, there were slaveholders who wanted to hold on to chattel slavery for as long as they could. And it was really the signal and most momentous achievement of the Civil War that emancipation resulted from it. And that was because not only of U.S. Politicians, but also because of enslaved people themselves who joined the armed forces by the tens of thousands, who liberated themselves by running to Union lines during the Civil War. And so Juneteenth is really kind of putting the capstone on a much longer story of emancipation that goes beyond just the Civil War.
Other than Houston being able to have some pride in its role, that feather in the cap about what would eventually become a national holiday, I mean, why are these new details of that first big celebration happening here important?
Well, I think when you set it in that context, again, of Reconstruction and political conflict about what would follow slavery, General Gordon Granger's proclamation talked about an absolute equality of personal rights. It wasn't just about freedom, it was about struggling for equality. And what you can see in this early procession is that this was not just about recreation, it wasn't just about remembrance, it was about this ongoing struggle for rights and respect, to own land, to build institutions, to demand recognition and respect as equal citizens. And so I think when we place this procession in its earliest context, that really comes through, that Juneteenth is about the present as well as about the past.
Caleb McDaniel is a professor of humanities at Rice University and wrote about this discovery in an article for the Alliance for Texas History. You can find a link to that article in the post for today's show at houstonmatters.org. Caleb, thanks so much.
Thank you. Happy Juneteenth.
Up next, the stories of Riverside General, Houston's former Negro hospital, told by a journalist whose family played a role in that institution's story, as Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
On the next
You count on Houston Public Media. That's why you're here right now. Take the next step and become a new member today. Every gift makes a difference. And with a gift of $5 a month or more, you'll receive PBS Passport, a member benefit that lets you stream more of the shows you love anytime. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. Join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
And from Baylor College of Medicine. Baylor's work centers on advancing health and medicine through research, education, and patient care.
Support comes from the Museum of Fine Arts Houston. Picasso's Cubism, Klay's abstraction, and Matisse's playful vision arrived from Germany in Masterpieces from the Museum Berggruen, now on view. Exhibit details at mfah.org.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Michael Haggerty, filling in today for Craig Cohen. 100 years ago on Juneteenth, a hospital opened in Houston's 3rd Ward dedicated to serving a community that was actively being oppressed by a system of legalized segregation, Jim Crow. The Houston Negro Hospital eventually became known as Riverside General, and it provided health care and trained generations of medical professionals who served the city. Now, Riverside closed in 2015 after long-standing financial challenges, but nearly a century after its founding, that institution is being restored as a Harris County health hub. Carlton Houston is an Emmy Award-winning journalist and a descendant of one of the hospital's early leaders and top surgeons, Dr. William M. Drake. Houston has written a book on the hospital. It's called The Houston Negro Hospital, The Untold Story of Riverside General. And he sat down with Houston Matters producer Mincho Jacob to talk about how the search for answers about his grandfather led him to the story of the hospital.
That was the thing that drove us and got us to this point of even being able to tell a story, because we had the same curiosity. How do you go from a farm in tiny Egypt, Mississippi, northeast Mississippi, near the state of Alabama, near the border, and how do you go from there to Wiley College, Meharry, University of Illinois, 3 degrees, and you're removing fibroid tumors by 1905. Like, that's a major operation at that time, and you can imagine no MRIs, no, X-rays. I mean, that's a significant risk. And how did he do it? There is a archive at Emory University that has, it's called the Robert Langmeyer Photo Collection. I found this photograph of a operating room with doctors and medical students all standing, crowding in this small hospital, Mercy Hospital in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm looking at the photograph and I'm looking at every face, and I find my grandfather, and he's standing next to a man named Daniel Hale Williams. I heard someone refer to him as the Jackie Robinson of medicine in America. He founded the National Medical Association when the AMA didn't allow black people in. He founded Provident Hospital in Chicago, and he performed one of the first open heart surgeries, period. My grandfather standing next to Dr. Daniel Hale Williams, and to find not just the words, but to see the image of him standing next to him when all this time we were wondering, who were the influences? Who helped him? Who were his inspirations? And to see that photograph and to know the history was just like, I'm still sort of coming to terms with this because we didn't know.
Yeah. Well, and what's so fascinating, too, about that period, I mean, you have the rise of Jim Crow happening in the South, right? And it wasn't just, there had been a lot of opportunities for folks who were newly freed.
Yes.
But by the turn of the century, a lot of those opportunities withering away.
He saw the rollback. He saw Reconstruction. He was voting. He was active politically. And then you see him 30 years later, and he's suing in courts to get the right to vote in the primary because there's a law that says black people can't vote in the primary. I mean, so he definitely saw the ups and the downs throughout his lifetime, which is fascinating.
What did healthcare look like, just speaking of Jim Crow, like in a place like Houston in the 1920s? You mentioned, I think, the Jefferson Davis County City Hospital, which is a fascinating name, that was here in Houston. But I mean, what did that look like for Black folks seeking health care in Houston in 1920?
So they called Jefferson Davis, which was the city-county white-controlled hospital, the public hospital. The black editor of the Houston Informer called it a death house. Blacks were dying at a rate of 2 to 1 compared to whites in Houston in the 1920s. There were doctors, black doctors at the time. There were small house hospitals, and that was the choice. If you were black, you could go to Jefferson Davis. You could be sent to a basement. You could be left on a gurney in a hallway. There's a fascinating story of a black man who was injured in some sort of altercation with police. I believe he was shot. They took him to the white-controlled hospital. He's laying there on a gurney. Lo and behold, a couple weeks later, it comes time for his court hearing. And the judge is like, well, where's the defendant? And the cops are like, in the hospital? And they go back to the hospital, and the hospital's like, he's dead. They basically let him die. And the judge was incredulous because he's like, how did this happen? That was the world that we lived in at that time, 100 years ago. So the Houston Negro Hospital was built as a solution to provide a place where black patients could go, because you basically had two options. You could go to Jefferson Davis, the death house, or you could die at home. And so having something, a place where you could get dignified care was so important to just survival for the black community.
And the hospital itself, I mean, it came about in a very interesting way. I mean, This wasn't just, I mean, I know there would have been a groundswell of people wanting this health care, but where do you get the funds, and even how do you overcome active repression to create it? But really, at the hand of an oil magnate, Joseph Cullinan, is that how
Cullinan.
Cullinan.
Yes.
My bad pronunciation.
It's okay. Joseph Cullinan. Fascinating story. When you see the name Houston Negro Hospital, you just assume, oh, black folks built it. Joseph Cullinan was a white millionaire, powerful, president of the state chamber in Texas.
It was the founder of which would have eventually become Texaco, right?
Yes. He was also unique in his time amongst his peers to be powerful, rich, influential, and to look at segregation as he did and say this was wrong. And so he did things like he stood up to the Klan in the 1920s, which was a dangerous thing to do. But he had so much influence, he was able to put down his own money to build a hospital. Then he turned to the city and he said it was as if he knew he was fixing a problem that he shouldn't have to fix. And so he turned to the city and said, you're going to donate the land. I will erect a hospital. We'll dedicate it to the black community. The black doctors can work there. They can do operations. Black patients can go there. And so the city responded and said, okay, we'll donate the land. And down there at the corner of Ennis and Elgin is where the hospital was built 100 years ago, and that's where it still stands.
I drive by it actually at least 3 or 4 times a week.
And it's crazy because when you drive down Elgin, you're looking at the back of the hospital because it was built as if to face inward on a campus.
Okay, I understand.
And so what happened was in the 60s, they expanded and built Riverside. And this was Houston Negro Hospital, and they took Riverside and they basically connected it to the front entrance. So now everyone sort of thinks of Riverside on Ennis, and they're looking at the building and they don't even realize, oh, this 3-story wing over here is a National Historic Landmark, until they eventually tore down Riverside and you could see the Houston Negro Hospital as it stood in the original days.
And what was that relationship like with a magnate? I mean, who, you know, for all intents and purposes, seemed like he wanted well for the black community, but he wasn't. I don't think he would have been able to radical by any means of like, we need to have integration in the country, say, right? He wasn't pushing for that per se. I mean, so what was that relationship like with
Yeah.
like people like your grandfather and the black community in general?
It was complex. I didn't realize I was also writing a story about additional themes like philanthropy. And in this case, the question is, if someone says, I'm going to give you $1 million, you're going to take it? Sure. If they say, I'm going to give you $1 million and there's going to be some strings attached, you kind of have to use it the way I want you to use it. Are you going to say no?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to say, okay, and maybe we'll try to figure out, let's work with it. Let's see what happens, and that's kind of what happened here, because the hospital was a gift. The hospital was called an experiment. The hospital was run by an all-black board of directors that had to report to an all-white advisory committee.
Mm-hmm.
So when the black board of directors wanted to make a decision about personnel that they thought perhaps was underperforming, they had to go through the white advisory committee. Well, if there's a difference of opinion, the black board of directors is going to lose that fight. And so you had these different conflicts over the course of the first 10 years because who was really in charge? Who had the best interests of the patients in mind? Who thought the doctors were trying to be too powerful?
Right.
The doctors actually couldn't be on the board. There was stipulation in the charter that the board members would be business people, a news editor, an educator, business person, entrepreneur, union guy. But the second superintendent of the hospital was a woman. But they had to change the charter to allow a woman to be a superintendent before they made that decision. And so, yeah, just lots of interesting layers and woven in and out, and especially in those early years. And this is stuff my mother never knew.
Yeah. And I mean, Cohen himself got a lot of pushback from the white community more broadly, right? And how, I mean, you're a journalist turned historian.
Yes.
And Instagram influencer. I definitely urge folks to follow you and learn this history in a different way, which is always really interesting. But, I mean, how did the press look at when this hospital was inaugurated on Juneteenth, right, in 2027?
Yes.
Or not 2027, 1927.
Trust me. Fascinating set of photographs from that day on Juneteenth in 1926.
26, that's it.
And it's to see white people and black people together on Juneteenth. It's fascinating to look at that photograph because Cullinan was, he was a very clever kind of marketing type of guy. Like, he understood optics. And so he created this scene on Juneteenth. He commissioned a photographer to capture it, to be able to see the white dignitaries who were invited, to see the crowd of black people who had come to watch this dedication of this experiment. And what's really fascinating is that you can look at their faces and you can see a level of what I believe to be a discomfort or awkwardness as this event played out, and it wasn't, to be sure, you can't look at the photo and say it's white and black. The white people are, there was a gentleman, George Petty. He was an attorney. He was a friend of Cullinan. He ran against a Klan senatorial candidate. He lost, but he was another guy close to Cullinan who had the similar ideas that, we should be treating black people more equally in this country, in this community, in this city than we are. And so it was George Petty who gave the keynote speech. So a lot of people look at the photographs and they say, well, who's that white guy? That's George Petty. He's an anti-Klan Houston lawyer, and it wasn't easy for white guys to get up and take that type of stance. They were criticized among white circles for being progressive, I guess is what we would call it today.
That's Carlton Houston, the author of The Houston Negro Hospital, The Untold Legacy of Riverside General. He spoke with producer Mincho Jacob. Just ahead, as we always do on Fridays, our non-experts break down the good, the bad, and the ugly of the week. as Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross-country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
TV8 American Experience presents an in-depth assessment of the 41st President of the United States, George Herbert Walker Bush. Tonight at 8 on TV8 or stream on the PBS app.
From Pearland, Texas, communities supporting innovation in business, science, healthcare, energy, and inspiring their citizens. More on innovation happening at Pearland, pearlandedc.com. Pearland Innovation lives here.
A lot can happen in a week, some of it good, some of it bad, some of it downright ugly. When faced with intriguing developments in the news, we turn to a rotating panel of non-experts to parse the good, the bad, and the ugly of it all. On today's panel, Raul Ramos, an associate professor of history at the University of Houston, Lisa Falkenberg, senior columnist with the Houston Chronicle, and Marco Roberts, chairman of the Texas Conservative Liberty Forum. Raul, Lisa, Marco, welcome to Houston Matters.
Happy to be here. Happy Juneteenth.
Panel after the Houston Chronicle reported that a top financial advisor for Houston Mayor John Whitmire rarely showed up to work at City Hall, City Controller Chris Hollins announced a formal investigation into the matter. Chris Brown, the former City Controller, is working now as Mayor Whitmire's senior advisor for financial integrity and is earning a $127,000 salary. That's according to records reported by the Chronicle. And of nearly 600 working days, he only swiped into city facilities 13 times. Hollins called for Whitmire to suspend Brown immediately pending the outcome of the investigation. The mayor expressed support for his advisor. Now, Brown had served as the city controller from 2016 through 2023 and repeatedly clashed with late Mayor Sylvester Turner. Now that Hollins is in that position, he and Mayor Whitmire have repeatedly clashed since they both took office in 2024. An investigation into the mayor's financial advisor and his salary. The latest in several clashes between the mayor and the city controller. Is this good, bad, or ugly? I'll start with Raul.
Wait, did I hear that right? Senior advisor for financial integrity.
Yes.
Okay, so the integrity's in there, right? Maybe I have a different definition of what the word integrity means, but clearly this is coming up now. That I think it's ugly, right? I think it's ugly partially because it seems to be a spillover of conflict that's going on between the mayor and the comptroller that seems to be repeating the conflict that's been going on for many years now between Chris Brown when he was a comptroller. So I understand there's a broader context for this. But in this specific case, in financial integrity, I do feel like accountability perhaps is a big part of that. And I'm looking at this and wondering, first of all, that this is the same kind of behavior that Brown was critical of in the Turner, or would have been critical of in the Turner administration. And now he's essentially doing the same thing. So it feels a little ironic. And the other part of this, I would say, maybe has to do with a bigger question. Why is he getting paid? I mean, so if it's not for work done because we don't see the product of that work, is it because he knows where the bodies are buried because he was comptroller for so many years? I've been calling him the skeleton crypt keeper in some ways. Like he knows where all the skeletons are buried.
Lisa.
Well, I don't know if it's good, bad, or ugly that the investigation is going on because Chris Hollins frequently calls for investigations, Whitmire, and I mean, that is an adversarial relationship by design, the comptroller and the mayor. He's supposed to be the watchdog, making sure. looking out for waste and that kind of thing. And plus, he also has his political ambitions. But what's bad about this is that, Whitmire has said over and over and over again, we're going to get the waste out of City Hall. And in fact, until I can, he has said, until I can assure the voters that we've gotten the waste out and we've done, acted on the audits and everything, I'm not going to even talk about, a tax increase. It is, it's disappointing. It's also odd because I remember Chris Brown, I haven't talked to either one of them about this, but I remember, he's a pretty diligent guy, like on top of everything when he was comptroller. So perhaps he's been sidelined. He's said some things to Whitmire that he didn't like. And so he's kind of like, in the what do they say? In the woodshed or something. And he's, but the Chronicle, I think, requested his emails. So it's not like he's working from home, sending all these productive emails either. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it. Somebody should be, looking at it. I'm glad my colleagues in the newsroom did. But I don't see anything wrong with Hollins doing an investigation.
Marco.
Well, I think like so many issues, it has both the ugly side and the good side. And I think you guys have already explained the ugly side about it. But I think the good thing is that we do have this adversarial system that does encourage accountability. I don't know exactly what's going on. I agree with Lisa that I think it's healthy that Chris Hollins is following up on the Houston Chronicle report. And the question about what's happening with Chris Brown, it's just part of what we see happen all the time. I mean, this is not the first time we've had this issue come up. We had the case with Marvin Agumagu. Remember him, the $97,000 intern under Sylvester Turner,
yeah.
and no one could figure out what was he getting paid for as well. And that never went anywhere. I don't know if Chris Brown looked at that and said, well, nothing happened. So I guess I don't know. I'm just saying. I think it's healthy that we're having this investigation. Kim Ogg, Chris Hollins, everybody discovers that it is difficult to take on your own party sometimes, and that's whether you're Republican or Democrat, doesn't matter, and it's a challenge, right? So I am encouraged that at least within the city of Houston, we still have some of a competing interests that are willing to put a check on each other. So I think that's healthy. So overall, I'm encouraged that this is occurring.
I have a theory about this. Maybe they're waiting for the waste tax to come in so they can eliminate waste within City Hall. Like maybe it's linked to the waste removal. Oh no, that's a different tax that they're talking
yes,
about.
Yes, the solid waste and the waste in more general terms. Panel, we've been hearing stories over the last week or so about visitors to Houston for the FIFA World Cup, getting their first tastes of what Greater Houston is like, from their thoughts on the oppressive heat and humidity, to their first tastes of queso, to their first trip to a Buc-ee's. But viewers around the world are also getting a taste of our city as they watch the matches here, including a view of our beautiful mountains. Wait, what now? After the match between Portugal and the Democratic Republic of the Congo ended in a 1-1 draw on Wednesday, a studio segment on the BBC included a backdrop of the Houston skyline, complete with a sprawling range of mountains that, of course, don't exist. Many Houston viewers spotted the addition and took to social media with comments like, "Oh, the Houston mountains are actually gorgeous this time of year." The BBC had some mountains to its view of the Houston skyline. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Lisa, start with you.
It looked very lovely. So I don't know if we'd call it ugly, but it's ugly that obviously Houston's being misrepresented by such a reputable news organization, of course. But, we do have mountains. They're just made of steel and glass. And we have valleys because they damage my tires every time I drive over them. And we have natural water bodies because one kept me from getting home when it was raining from the grocery store the other day. And so Houston is what it is. And, everybody's getting to see the good, bad, and ugly of it when they come. This heat, it's I shouldn't laugh, but it's comedic. Say, oh my God, how do you live in this inferno day in and day out? And so you can understand the desire to kind of put some lipstick on the piggish parts of our city. It's inappropriate journalistically, but it makes us. We do have some very beautiful parts. Why not put, the what is it, Rice Boulevard, the lovely oaks in the back or something like this? Yeah,
Yeah. Marco, good, bad, or ugly?
Well, I mean, it would be interesting to find out what was the reason they did that, like, because that must have taken some sort of, active action, right? They didn't just take a picture. Somebody went in and fiddled with it. And I'm curious as to why. And I think that maybe one of the reasons could be is that they couldn't find anything interesting. And they just said, well, let's just spruce it up. I think one of the things about Houston, I love Houston for the people. But when you think about what are the landmarks, nobody comes to Houston to vacation, right? You come for a conference or an event or visit family. That's why you come here. But when people say, well, what's there to see in Houston? And say, well, there's the Space Center, but that's actually not in Houston. Oh, well, there's the San Jacinto Monument. Well, that's also not in Houston. And the last time we built anything that people were like, oh, this is like symbolic of Houston was the Astrodome back in 1965. And it's been a while. So I'm hoping that this will encourage us as a city to start thinking, maybe we can start building again. And maybe next time they'll say, oh, that's really interesting. That'll symbolize the city. And we won't have anybody thinking we got to spruce this up with mountains.
They don't come to here to hike our beautiful mountain ranges? Gosh. Raul, good, bad, or ugly?
Well, I'll say, Marco, it smacks of AI slop, that somehow this is an imaginary Houston that we would like to be the case. That's one of the things I used to say to my kids. Is this really what happened, or is this what you wish happened? And certainly this idea of imagination and the West and the American West has always been a big theme. I mean, certainly we have cities that have mountains like Denver, Salt Lake City, Los Angeles has beautiful mountains. El Paso, of course. And yet Houston is absolutely flat. We're in a swamp, right? But as been pointed out by my neighbors and a couple other folks have been posting that the Allen brothers promoted Houston with fanciful images of kind of these like rolling hills and that maybe were like the banks of the bayou, but certainly not the kind of alpine scenery that they were hoping for. Certainly we have an aesthetic of landscape that includes mountains, that includes this kind of dramatic setting. And so I can imagine Europeans imagine that the entire country is like that. And certainly they land in Houston, start driving down the highway and are sorely disappointed when they start seeing the billboards up and down the street.
All our mountains are, the Astrodome is another one of our mountains. The Houston, a.k.a. NRG Stadium, one of our mountains. The skyline, as Lisa said. Raul Ramos is an associate professor of history at the University of Houston. Lisa Falkenberg is a senior columnist for the Houston Chronicle. And Marco Roberts is the chairman of the Texas Conservative Liberty Forum. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. And happy semi-quincentennial.
Yes. All right, there you go.
I'm Rebecca Marks Jimerson, and I'm a living history performer, scholar, and educator. My work focuses on historical African-American women, bringing them to life. I've done Ida B. Wells, Bessie Stringfield, Laura Smalley, Sojourner Truth. My foundation for my living history was University of Southern California, where I was a thespian. And I found living history, which is Chautauqua. Chautauqua goes back to the 1900s, where it was done under a tent in Chautauqua, New York. And it was to bring history alive and to do lectures and then to have talkbacks. And today's Chautauqua, we, the performers, scholars, create a 45-minute monologue that has to be factual. And we dress in the living history character, and we take questions out of character and in character. Let's go into Harriet. I was born into slavery in 1820. Grew up like a neglected weed, ignorant of liberty, having no experience of it. I couldn't read, I couldn't write, but I escaped to freedom in 1849. And I decided then that everybody I left behind should be free. Now, Laura Smalley in 1941 was recorded by John Henry Folk. She was a former slave, and this is one of the earliest recordings in Texas of a former slave and how they relived Juneteenth. We didn't know we was free. You know, they just turned us out. Just turned us out like cattle. You know, old Master didn't tell us we was free. No, he didn't tell us. And they turned us loose. It was 19th of June. That's why, you know, I think we celebrate this as colored folks. I hope that these performances show that freedom is not theoretical, but it's lived and it's fought. And the fact that Harriet Tubman, being the conductor of the Underground Railroad, leading to freedom, and the quiet humility of Laura Smalley, that these are voices that should not be forgotten. I'm Rebecca Marks Jimerson, and you're listening to Houston Matters with Craig Cohen.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
Stars with a 2026-27 season of Broadway musicals at the Hobby Center. Subscription packages for 3 or more shows are available. Information at tuts.org.
Have we got some more from Discovery Green, 12-acre park, downtown Houston this summer. Discovery Green's presenting concerts featuring music from around the world. Sundays, 5 to 7 p.m. More information, discoverygreen.com.
In addition to being Father's Day, Sunday is also Make Music Day, a free celebration of musical performance in more than 1,000 cities, including here in Houston and in 120 countries around the world. The initiative encourages spaces of all kinds, parks, patios, sidewalks, community spaces, you name it, to book free public performances with music makers of all skill levels, ages, and genres. Joining me now is a music maker herself. Drea Thornton is a 16-time RIAA Platinum Certified Grammy and Dove-nominated composer and vocalist who also serves on the City of Houston's Music Advisory Board. Drea, welcome to Houston Matters.
Thank you so much.
Glad to have you. How would you describe your music for those who haven't heard it?
Oh, I would have to say intentionally I make it nostalgic and inspiring. So I reach a little bit into the 90s and the 2000s because that's my nostalgia. But I'm also obviously forward with my music. And then I just, I love inspiration. So I have music for everybody. I'm hip hop, I'm R&B. So, I mean, whether you feel rappy or you feel inspired or you feel like you need to be empowered, I'm all of those things.
For people who haven't heard your music, let's fix that for them. We're going to hear a little bit of your track. It's called Fallen. What should we know about that song?
Fallen is a single from my latest EP called When It Comes to Love, and it's an R&B EP. It's about 6 songs, and it's on all streaming platforms.
All right, let's take a listen to that. A sample there of the song Fallen from our guest, Houston vocalist Drea Thornton. How did you get into singing and performing?
Oh, wow. If you want to take it all the way back when I was 5 years old. I don't know. I sang at a talent show and I remember having that feeling of like, this is what I want to do. I don't know how I felt that at 5 years old, but I can still remember that feeling. So as I grew up, my parents really nurtured it. They really leaned into it and allowed me to creatively express myself and be free. And I just started songwriting and a bunch of books and went to performing arts school and just decided that, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah, what is it like up there when you're performing? What does it do for you?
Oh, it's a rush. I'm a little bit nervous because I definitely want people to take away what I want them to take away from the song. I feel great if I see someone in the audience who's inspired or maybe moved by the song. It's gratifying. So yeah, it feels great.
Houston, as many folks know, has a rich R&B history, especially when it comes to the B in R&B, the blues.
Yeah.
If you know that history, you'll know the name Big Mama Thornton, how she recorded the song Hound Dog here in Houston well before Elvis Presley became known for it. A while back, I saw you released a mixtape called Big Mama Thornton. First, I got to ask, any relation to her?
No.
Okay, pure coincidence. Why did you want to pay homage to her with that recording?
Because she is such great history in Houston. And that's my rap side of myself, which is a little bit bigger than who I am as a regular person. I'm a little more calm, laid back. So we decided to go with Big Mama Thornton because my last name is Thornton. And I was like, okay, well, I'll pay homage, but then, also pay homage to, some of the Houston songs that came out maybe like in the 2000s, really big club bangers. And so I just wanted to wrap Houston up in a bow, and I came up with Big Mama Thornton.
Excellent. And in addition to recording and performing, we mentioned serve on the City of Houston's Music Advisory Board. What does that role entail? What do you do?
I am the treasurer. And basically just, obviously the financial side of it. But I'm heavily involved in the community with the board. We are definitely in between the city and the creative community in Houston, and the communication between it, and just kind of seeing what people need, collaboration, education, just seeing what they need and taking it back to the city, and also servicing some of those needs as well. So it's really, I love being, I told them yesterday, I said, I don't want to leave because you term out, but I love it. I just love supporting the creatives in the city.
We brought you here on the occasion of Make Music Day this weekend, Sunday. Why is it important to celebrate and to encourage live music performance in the community?
It's important because music is life. I was just speaking about this. It's like you walk into a grocery store, you go to a game, anywhere you go, there's music. And so Houston has so much diversity that I think it's really important. We're never really, as an individual, going to hear everything that's going on in the city, but Make Music Day is really an opportunity for you to just choose. I want to listen to, Spanish music, Mexican. I want to listen to rap. I want to listen to R&B. I want blues, jazz. Like, we have everything. It's a melting pot. So, I mean, Houston is a huge diversity, and so people need to hear what's going on out here.
In addition to Make Music Day on Sunday, it's also Father's Day this weekend, but also today's Juneteenth.
Yeah.
Tell me about the performance you're involved in to celebrate Juneteenth later today.
Yes, I'll be at Redemption Square in Humble. The event is from 4 to 9 p.m., and it's a Juneteenth celebration. I'll be performing at 7:20 and with DJ Gold as my DJ. And then they have Marcus Ardon and the Zydeco. So it's a Zydeco set that comes in after me. So I'm excited. It's outdoors, it's family friendly, and we're just there to celebrate the culture.
Zydeco, speaking of another musical genre with lots of history in Houston. Make Music Day, featuring free music performances in 1,000 cities, including Houston, and in 120 countries around the world, is this Sunday, June 21st. Drea Thornton is a 16-time RIAA Platinum Certified, Grammy and Dove nominated composer and vocalist, who also serves on the City of Houston's Music Advisory Board. Drea, thanks so much for talking with us.
Thank you so much.
And that does it for this hour of Houston Matters. Our team includes Craig Cohen, Joshua Zinn, Brenda Valdivia, Micho Jacob, and Laura Walker. Jared Carroll's our technical director. Reminder, you can check out Houston Matters anytime. Subscribe to our podcast for the audio, or visit Houston Public Media's YouTube channel for the video. On Monday's show, we learn about the science behind new approaches to suicide prevention and about a local nonprofit involved in using them. Also, a doctor from UT Health's headache clinic answers your question. You can send those now to talk@houstonmatters.org. I'm Michael Haggerty. Have a lovely Juneteenth and a happy Father's Day, and join us Monday for those and other Houston Matters.
Can't get enough PBS programming? PBS Passport is an added member benefit that offers exclusive streaming access to many of your favorite programs on the PBS app. Whether you're an NPR listener, a PBS watcher, or both, your ongoing donations of at least $5 per month qualify